All right, thank you for coming tonight to the City of Anderson Planning Commission. We will start the night with an invocation. Please be with me. We ask for your hand of blessing on this meeting. We ask that you would guide and direct our meeting so that it is full of wisdom, productivity, and respect for one another. Thank you for helping us to accomplish our work and our goals this day. Amen.
Amen.
Moving along to the approval of minutes from December 3rd, 2024. There was a error on page 2 that I've already talked with the secretary about, and it's already been amended. So if someone would like to approve those minutes as amended.
I'll make a motion we approve the amended minutes.
I have a motion. I have a second.
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. We will, is there any addenda to the agenda?
No, sir.
All right, we'll move along to the public hearing, ZA 25-1.
Thank you. And tonight we're here to consider approval of a resolution recommending the adoption of the City of Anderson Comprehensive Plan. And the Comprehensive Plan is a document that provides guidance to help guide the future of the community. And it gives you as a planning commission, gives the city council and staff guidance and direction when making growth and development decisions. And South Carolina law requires this document to include several components, and those are population, economic development, land use, housing, community facilities, cultural resources, natural resources, transportation, and priority investment and resiliency. And in the document that's before you and we're considering tonight, all those elements are included. This process started a couple of years ago, a little over 2 years ago, when we began the process of developing the new comprehensive plan with Halsey Levine Associates, our consultants, and a lot of work has gone into this. As you know, you've been involved with it throughout the way as well. And through an initiative called Plan This City, we did receive significant public input obtained through stakeholder meetings, also through community forums, through online opportunities as well. And this helped the consultants and the staff craft a document that has clear goals and action strategies looking forward to the next 20 years. Now, I mentioned South Carolina law a minute ago, but to implement the plan per the requirements of Chapter 29 of the South Carolina Code of Laws, known as the Local Government Comprehensive Planning Enabling Act of 1994, the Planning Commission must adopt a resolution recommending the plan to the City Council. And that resolution is included in your packet tonight as a reference. But we're coming to you tonight recommending approval of a resolution that recommends you to send to the City Council the adoption of the 2025 City of Anderson Comprehensive Plan. As I mentioned, upon your adoption of this, this will be forwarded to the City Council for their consideration. Now, tonight acts as a public hearing for this plan, and also the City Council will conduct a public hearing prior to their City Council meeting on March 24th. So that will be taking place as well. But before we open it up for public comment, I'd like to turn this over to John Halsey and Josh Kuntz with Halsey Levine to go over the details. They've helped us get to this point, so they're going to go over the details of the plan right now. I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you.
All right, Chairman and members of the Plan Commission and anybody who's in the audience behind me, I apologize for looking at my back, but I've got to face this way, so hopefully you can see everything on the screen. Again, my name is John Halsey with the planning firm of Halsey Levine. We were selected a couple of years ago to assist the City of Anderson with the development of its comprehensive plan. So myself and Josh Kuntz, who's sitting to my left, is the project manager for this project and has worked most closely with the city. Every step along the way, he's going to be walking through portions of this as well. But we're going to provide a brief overview of the plan, the process, where we are, what's next, just to get everything on the record. And then once we've done that, Mr. Chairman, we'll turn it over to you to facilitate Q&A or any questions anybody on that commission or in the audience might have. So real quickly, we're going to be going over the process update, a review and discussion of the public draft of the plan, and then what the next steps are. The project status so far, I know you all know, but I'll say for the people in the audience, just to sort of reiterate what a comprehensive plan is and what a comprehensive plan is intended to do. A comprehensive plan is to help tell Anderson's story, to share the city's vision for the next 10 to 20 years. It is to help the city evaluate and inform development proposals. If a developer were to come forward with something that the development team would like to do, and they propose a development to the city, the Planning Commission and the City Council and city staff can look at this document to help make decisions. It doesn't dictate what the city has to do, but it helps inform and guide decisions. And it also telegraphs to the development community, to residents, to businesses, what the intent is or the vision is for the city going forward. So everybody is sort of playing off the same document. It is a foundation for a regulatory framework. Planning is not zoning, zoning is not planning. The comprehensive plan, this document does not dictate what you can and cannot do with your property. That's zoning. Zoning regulates the use and development of land. The comprehensive plan does not regulate the use and development of land. It is a guiding document to help inform decision-making, and it sets the stage and sets the table for zoning, but it in itself is not zoning. It is to help coordinate with regional initiatives. If your neighboring community of Clemson or the county or the state wishes to do something within or adjacent to Anderson, you can say, hey, before we get into this project with you guys, here's what we hope to accomplish over the next 10 to 20 years. So it will allow you to better coordinate and represent the city's position when you work with others' initiatives, and that's very important. It'll support CIP and budgeting. CIP, for those in the audience, is capital improvement programming or capital improvement planning. Streets, infrastructure, utilities, water, wastewater, detention facilities. That's capital improvements. It's the stuff that makes a city work. And it has to go hand in hand with land use and hand in hand with development. When the city budgets for CIP improvements, when they program CIP improvements, those are typically done on 5-year increments. And based on the priorities established in the plan, it will allow the city and the city's departments to better plan and coordinate infrastructure investment over time. It will help identify future studies. Some things are outside of the purview of the comprehensive plan. The process may have uncovered things that the city would like to see done, the residents would like to see done, but that may require another effort or another initiative, not as part of this study. And it's meant to inform and educate the community on a variety of things. It's about a 200-page document. There is a lot packed in here, but it's a wealth of information on the city and what it hopes to achieve. To reiterate some of the opening remarks, every state in the country requires and allows comprehensive planning at the county and city level. Every state handles it slightly differently. Some states have different requirements than other states. In South Carolina, it's Title VI, Chapter 29 is the enabling legislation for comprehensive planning in the state of South Carolina. And as stated by the state legislation, it says the basic planning process is to inventory existing conditions, which was done, establish a statement of needs and goals, which is in the plan, and the implementation strategies with timeframes for how the plan can be unfolded over the next 10 to 20 years. Specifically in the state of South Carolina, there are 10 elements that have to be included in the plan. They are population and demographics, land use, housing, economic development, transportation, community facilities, natural resources, resiliency, cultural resources, and priority investment. Some of these that are unique to South Carolina are priority investment and resiliency. Other states have often times things like tourism or zoning plans or smart growth requirements. But every state is a little bit different, but these are the 10 elements that are required in the state of South Carolina. The process to undertake this, again, and for those in the audience, planning process really has to do 3 things, that's it. You have to establish where the city is right now. You have to establish where the city wants to go in the next 10 to 20 years. And you need to identify what needs to be done to get there. So where are we now? Where do we want to go? What do we have to do to get there? That's part of the planning process. So the process to undertake and develop this was these 3 things. Project initiation was task 1. That was kickoff with city council, staff, the plan commission, and residents. Our initial round of community engagement, an interactive project website, a series of interviews, a series of workshops that have then taken place throughout every other subsequent step of the process. A detailed analysis of existing conditions, the good, the bad, the ugly, zoning, infrastructure, land use, community input, transportation, parks and open space, environmental features, zoning, we looked at all of it. Task 4 is that middle piece, the where do we want to go, and that was done by establishing a vision and goals and objectives and a preliminary framework for the rest of the document. Task 5 was sub-areas, or in this document we call them special plans or special areas. A comprehensive plan is meant to address the entire city, all areas of a city, but within that, it often identifies areas that are more susceptible to change or need more heightened level of attention. And these are sub-areas or special areas. For this comprehensive plan, we worked with the city to identify 4 specific sub-areas or special areas, and Josh will go through those. Those have a heightened level of detail and planning attention given to those. And there are 4 of them in the city as part of this document. Task 6 is the core citywide plans and policies that were beyond land use and the sub-areas, so we'll get to those in a little bit. And then task 7 is pulling it all together to prepare the draft, to go through the public hearing process, the final open house process, and to get it adopted. That's sort of where we are right now is task 7. But to finalize task 7, we're still doing parts of task 2, which is that engagement. Last night we had an open house. We had several people attended at the Economic Development office just a couple blocks away from here. We had an open house this morning from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock for about 4 hours. We had about 30 or 40 people come to that this morning. We had another roundtable discussion with the Plan Commission and City Council earlier this afternoon. And then this is the Plan Commission public hearing. And as stated in the opening remarks, the City Council will also be conducting a public hearing and have at least 2 readings of this before any action is taken. So the community engagement is still part of the process right now. The engagement that we had so far in the outreach was pretty extensive. We had over 700 points of engagement with specific folks participating. Online, we had a community survey that was available to everybody. We also had an online mapping tool called Map Social, where people could map comments across the city and tie it back to a geographic point or a specific location within the city. In-person activities, either conducted by the consultant team or city staff or a combination, include everything that's up here. So city council retreats, leadership classes, Kiwanis Club, department heads meetings, elected officials roundtables, East-West Parkway visioning workshop, focus group and stakeholder discussions, community visioning workshops, business workshops, military officers association meeting, dream team workshops, leadership teams with the health organization, building your own business organization, and there's a bunch more up there. I'm not going to read them. We also had Midtown and Downtown Gateway sub-area charrettes and community open houses. So over the last 2 years, we have had throughout the process an extensive number of online and face-to-face, large group, small group, and one-on-one workshops and engagements to make sure that people had the opportunity to let their voice be heard. And the feedback throughout was really very extensive and very good. We appreciate the time people took to participate. So that was a little bit about the process. A little bit about the plan itself. Again, this is not regulatory. This comprehensive plan does not dictate what you can and cannot do with your property. It is not zoning. This is not necessarily identification of things that the city will do, but is the policy under which the city will evolve over the next and grow over the next 10 to 20 years. The best way to think of a comprehensive plan for everybody in this room is that as a foundation for decision making. It doesn't dictate and tell you what you have to do, but as capital improvements, as roadway improvements, as bike trails or bike lanes are considered, as new parks are considered, locations for new schools are considered, strategies to invigorate economic development and retail in the downtown, to make sure you have enough housing and neighborhood revitalization for the next 10 to 20 years and for the next generation. This document helps the city make decisions. It's a foundation for future decision making. It doesn't dictate what those decisions are, but it gives everybody a leg up on what the city is trying to achieve collectively over the next 20 years. The outline of the document, it's extensive. It's a double-sided 400-page document. It's been available online for over a month. You can see a hard copy at City Hall if you want to swing by there and look at it as well. It contains these 12 sections: introduction, planning context, vision and goals, land use and development, housing and neighborhoods, economic development, transportation and mobility, community facilities and infrastructure, parks, open space and resiliency, cultural resources and tourism, the sub-areas that I talked about, there's 4 of them, and then priority investment and implementation, how we begin to get these things done, and the timeline for some of those investment and actions. So this is the layout of the 12 chapters of the document. Right now, what we're going to be reviewing is all of them to get it on the record, but some of the ones the city has seen maybe a little bit less of so far is the housing, economic, transportation, community facilities, parks, cultural resources, and implementation. The other 5 that are up there that are faded out, we've had extensive workshops on feedback from to get those really dialed in that gave us the foundation to get at these other elements. So we'll be going through all of these tonight. But over the last several days, we've been focusing on these. So what I'm going to do now is turn it over to Josh Kuntz. Josh was the project director. He's our national practice lead for urban planning in the United States out of our firm. He was the project director, really shepherding this through, working closely with city staff, the Planning Commission and City Council. And Josh is going to real quickly go through the different chapters of the document.
Again, thank you, Chairman, and to the Planning Commission for having us tonight. One thing I will say is it's 140 pages, so not 400, but yeah. So again, like John said, I'll be just running through the different chapters of this document, show you a little bit of an orientation to how it can be used, how the chapters are structured. We start off right here with an introductory chapter. This contains the purpose of this document, some of the things that we just went through, the statutes that guide a document like this, the organization, the planning process, how we got here, a short summary of the outreach process that John just mentioned. And then as we get into chapter 2, you also will see the planning context. So things like, here's that outreach and engagement snapshot, a regional settings map, where is the city physically located in the region, what are some of the past plans and studies that are still pertinent to this this current study that we reviewed and incorporated along the way. And then that population element that's required by state statutes, you'll find that in this introductory section to sort of set the stage for the planning process, the where are we today part of this process. The vision and goals, one of the things I like to point out is that really the vision statement, that's sort of the loftiest and most aspirational part of this whole document, that's built on those 700 touch points of community outreach. We had a lot of visioning exercises along the way here, and we tried to distill that down into a punchy 2-paragraph statement that really articulated, if you were to sort of put yourself in 2045, what would we want to see in our community as a result of good planning and good policy. And I often like to say, if we stopped here, you'd be asking, how are we going to achieve this vision? This sounds great. Everybody can get behind this, and they should be able to, but what are we going to do? So again, this is the aspirational center of the plan. Beneath that, we have a series of goals that are actionable, things that the city can work toward to start to achieve that vision, and those align with those chapters and those elements that are required by state statutes. At the center, after the vision, the centerpiece of the plan is the land use and development portion of the plan. Like John said, any comprehensive plan, any state of the country is going to have a future land use component to it. Where and how are we going to develop, grow, what's going to preserve and maintain, where do we need to target reinvestment and redevelopment, where do we want to see our commercial areas, our residential areas, public and semi-public areas. So sort of set the stage for this, we looked at a series of what we called land use influences. So here in Anderson, you do have some land available within the municipal boundary, the current municipal boundary, to do infill redevelopment. There's some vacant land. There's some properties that are in need of reinvestment. So that's one of the influences. You have room to develop within the municipal boundary. You also have a centerpiece of your city, the urban core, the downtown. That's a big land use influence. Not all communities have such a well-developed and well-thought-out downtown that can really be sort of the center part of the community. And then there also are opportunities for outward growth. Anderson is not landlocked like some communities in the country are, so there are opportunities also to grow outward. So as we put together the future land use map, we took a look at these things. You can see on the left-hand side of the screen here, we did a what we would call a vignette, a smaller map of the downtown core, identified some of those downtown assets, and showed how that urban core is influencing land use planning. We did a growth area framework, so you can see on the right-hand side, we assigned short, medium, and long-term priorities to where the city may eventually grow as development annexes and potentially comes into the city over the next couple of decades. And then all of that sort of materializes into the centerpiece map of the comprehensive plan, which is the future land use map. We articulate development for every parcel in the city. Again, this is a policy map, so in that build-out scenario, what would residential, commercial, downtown, industrial, public, semi-public, parks and open space, utility, what would all that development look like? Where would it go? Where do we want to see it continue in the future, or perhaps shift and change a little bit? Another one of the specifically required elements by state statute, the Housing and Neighborhoods chapter. This has, each of these chapters will have some policy language, so this Housing and Neighborhoods section is really getting at sustainable and attractive neighborhoods, how we're going to have the housing diversity and attainability for the long term as people want to continue to move here, put down roots, age in place, phase out of their larger home into a smaller home as they retire, where are the areas that are going to need reinvestment and infill. And there's policies and guidance and recommendations for each of those things pertaining to the city's housing and residential areas. There's what we would call a housing framework map here. So on the overall future land use map, we just have a couple land use categories. Here we sort of break them out into their more specific categories. If you were to pick up a comprehensive plan from several decades ago, they probably would stop at the future land use map. And that can be a problem in a city like Anderson, where you have single-family neighborhoods in different parts of the community. And if we just called it all single-family, from the bird's eye future land use map view, you wouldn't understand the nuances and differences between some of your core neighborhoods around your downtown that are on a traditional street grid with smaller footprint homes and smaller lots compared to your newer subdivisions up to the north. So a map like this really helps to pull apart what those differences are and what the different actions and strategies should be for your different neighborhoods. It's a similar structure for the economic development chapter, another chapter required by state statutes. This is all about promoting commercial development, whether it's nodally or along key corridors, reinvesting and revitalizing some of the established commercial areas. Again, we're talking about downtown in this chapter as a commercial core for the city. Economic and workforce development. There's a lot of good initiatives here that are already happening that we tried to encapsulate in this chapter. So again, you can see some of the policy guidance, case studies as examples for and how things can occur. I'll call your attention to the little diagram down here on the bottom left. When we have terms in this document like outlot development, we like to explain those right on the page, right in context with the language. We like to show a community-specific diagram, if we can, to show what does that mean, what does that mean specifically for Anderson. So this shows what outlot development, if it were to occur, could look like along Anderson Mall, for example, and just illustrates that planning concept right on the page with the direction from the plan. We don't like to dive too deep into planning jargon. Again, like John said and Marie said, this is a document that lives online. It's available to the whole community. We want people to be able to pick up and understand this without having a background in planning or land use law or anything like that. So this is a public-facing document. Similar to the housing section, what was all red on the map previously, here we break it into its sort of subcategories. So you can see things like neighborhood nodal commercial, neighborhood corridor along Main Street there, regional commercial. What's the difference between these areas? What's the character? What are some of the things we need to do differently for regional commercial reinvestment and revitalization versus revitalization along the city's key corridors, for example? We worked with a national transportation planning firm, Tool Design, with local offices here in Spartanburg to really put together a transportation and mobility section that is very specific to Anderson. Tool is known for their emphasis on complete streets and working with all modes of transportation, whether you're somebody who's driving most of the time or you have to sometimes get out and walk or bike to get to where you need to go. So this chapter is robust. You'll see a deep dive into things like ADA accessibility, safe routes to school, the sidewalk network, on-street bikeways, trails and paths, all as a part of the network of transportation options within your community. We have maps like the one on the right that prioritize some of the potential projects that are coming online. We've referenced county documents and other ongoing plans to reflect what's really happening here in the community. Bike and trail facilities map, existing, proposed, and planned. Transit network, we show that here to illustrate some of the transit policies and recommendations. Freight and passenger and rail and truck freight. And then again, you can see here's an example of zooming in a little bit into downtown parking lot utilization. That's something that we are lucky enough to have Tool to really get at some of the nuances that are facing Anderson. The community facilities and infrastructure chapter, a lot of the recommendations here, you'll see things like continue to preserve, maintain. You want to continue to maintain your city-owned facilities. You want to collaborate with your key partners like your educational institutions. You want to continue to maintain high levels of public safety, fire safety, police safety, things like that. So we inventory the community facilities and provide some recommendations for upkeeping and maintaining those key facilities and services. We also did a broadband inventory using some national broadband data sets to show areas where that critical piece of infrastructure might be needed. Again, if you were to pick up a comprehensive plan from even a decade ago, thinking of broadband as a critical piece of infrastructure might not be in that document, and more this is an important thing for, of course, any resident in any community. Parks, open space, and resiliency. Resiliency is one of those ones that's unique to South Carolina. So this chapter inventories the parks. We did a service area analysis, and you can see from looking at it where some of the areas did not receive parks over the last several decades as development occurred. So it shows where areas that could potentially be targeted for new parks in the coming years. There is the resiliency component. How does the city bounce back from serious flood, fire events, and what can the city do to work with the state on things like that? And then another one that is specific to South Carolina requirements, the cultural resources, and in this case we did tourism chapter. We're talking about things like your landscape of local events. Anderson has a lot going on, so this was a fun and interesting deep dive into what's happening here in the community. And again, you'll see recommendations like continue to do the things that you're doing, expand these events. The comprehensive plan is more comprehensive than ever. We're not just looking at land uses, but how do we bring people to our downtown? How do we get people here to enjoy Anderson, stay a little while, spend their money, and enjoy the things that we have to offer? Historic preservation is an important part of this. So these reflect the city's established historic districts, an inventory of your current historic buildings, and some policy and recommendations for how to continue that and to expand it as needed. John mentioned this a little bit. We did do 4 detailed planning studies. So up to this chapter, we're pretty much looking at citywide maps and policies and recommendations. In the sub areas or special areas within this plan, we're able to drill down a little bit more, do some detailed planning. We're actually talking about intersections, intersection improvements, potential street crossings, and for each of these red parcels that you see, we did an illustrative model that showed what development could look like if this parcel were to develop. It's not to say that this isn't a prescriptive or an architectural diagram or a site plan, but this shows conceptually what perhaps development could look like on some key sites. So we did a sub-area plan for East-West Parkway, for North Midtown, and again you can see there's the red site where we did a little bit of a development concept up at the top right. Midtown South, again we did a development concept for the red site, and uniquely on this one we also showed what a streetscape reconfiguration could look like. You know, say a couple years down the line, SCDOT comes to the city and says, you know, it's time to rebuild Main Street. Instead of reacting to whatever the state DOT gives you, you now have some diagrams that can show how could this street function a little better for our community and for the neighborhoods along it. Lastly, the downtown gateway, same concept. We dove in a little bit closer. We did some detailed planning. We showed where some key gateways might be, some key sites, how those could redevelop. And finally, the priority investment and implementation chapter. One of the questions that often comes out of this is how are we going to get all this done? This chapter is all about how to use the plan. What are some funding sources that the city can feasibly reach out to and use to move the needle on some of this stuff? How are we going to use this document? We pair this with an action matrix that identifies, it takes all the should statements of the plan, all the recommendations, it distills them down to their core actions, assigns a priority, a timeline or a time frame which is required by state statutes, pairs it with a partner if appropriate. So this really is the cliff notes for when, like John said, when the city is doing its short-term planning, its CIP, how are we going to get these things done each and every year? And this can kind of act as a checklist for our progress on the comprehensive plan along the way. Next steps for the process. Again, we did have a couple of open houses today and last night. Based on feedback from those from the Joint City Council and Planning Commission meeting just earlier this afternoon, any public comment that we hear tonight, we will go back and prepare a public adoption draft for the next step, which is adoption readings with City Council. I do want to say thank you to the City of Anderson. This has been a rewarding process. We're proud of the work that we've done, and it wouldn't have been possible without all the good feedback from the community and with a close working relationship with city staff and elected and appointed officials. So it has been a really good process, and this document does really reflect what the city needs, and we're excited to see where you all take it once it's adopted. So thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Now I'll just ask from the committee, does anyone have any questions for either staff or the consultants? Maurice, where is this located on the website? Is it easily found?
Yes, it's easily found. It's on the front page of our website. There's a banner scrolling across, and you can easily click on that.
With the
also,
plan
you
of
can
the
go into
city.
the planning section of the webpage. It's there as well.
Okay. All right. We've come to the public comment section. So what I would like to do is if there's anyone kind of have a direction on this, anyone that has a concern or issues can step forward, and then maybe some comments or support of the plan, and also anyone that's either neutral or any corrections that they might want to put into this that we can pass along to City Council. So having said that, would anybody like to come forward with any concerns or issues? Yes, step forward, state your name and your address, please.
My name and address?
Yes.
Yeah. I am Ward Bowen. I currently live at 102 McPhail Farm Circle in Anderson, South Carolina, 29621.
Okay.
I am the current president of the Homeowners Association there, and I just learned about these plans this morning. So I've been getting up to speed all day on this, and I'd like to say that having been born and raised here in Anderson, I'm really excited to see, some of the transformations that have gone on in downtown. Because growing up when I was a little kid, we always went to Greenville. Everything's happening in Greenville, and to this day, my wife still likes to go to Falls Park when you want a really nice restaurant. But I want to see more of that come to downtown Anderson. And like the gentleman said there, we want to find reasons to get people into the downtown and spend some money, spend some time there. I'd love nothing more than that. But my primary concern would be on this document on page 103 along the East-West Parkway and the intersection of Concord Road and East-West Parkway. It's kind of slated for commercial development. And kind of talking to a lot of people out in my area, everybody was under the impression that there was a promise made by county council that all the development along the East-West Parkway would always be residential only, and there wouldn't be any further commercial development in that area. So there's a lot of concern about this intersection in particular. And I kind of think that waters down plans, because you want to get people into the downtown. You don't want them just walking across their backyard to go to some little restaurant that's struggling to make it. Because I've seen so many restaurants here in Anderson just really struggle to make it. Start up, go out of business. Start up, go out of business. The restaurants we have here, we're starting to get some really good restaurants in downtown. I love to go to Doolittle's, J. Peters, all those places. I want to see those places thrive and have a vibrant downtown and not water it down by adding some extra commercial development here and there. So that's my primary concern.
Okay. Thank you. And like John said, this plan is not zoning.
Yeah.
So it is just kind of a future look at.
Yes.
But that is, we'll make sure that that's notated. I think, Maurice, that you said that you would take notes and pass that along because this is a draft.
Yes.
So,
Yes, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
okay. Anything else on that?
That'll be it.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Anyone else with concerns, issues? Yes, sir. Step forward, state your name and address, please.
My name is Doug Wright. I'm the CEO of Senior Solutions, which is at 3420 Clemson Boulevard. I just wanted to add the fact that in the transportation piece that Senior Solutions and the Electric City Transit are working to develop a hybrid system to use a microtransit system rather to connect to the fixed route system that Electric City has in the alphabet streets here in the city. We've done surveys in that area, and it is considerably a transportation desert, I guess is what the planners like to call it. There really isn't a lot of public transit that can work in that area. The streets are narrow and small. Big buses can't get through it. So we are working with a federal transit grant out of University of Minnesota, of all places. And we've developed a plan that we're hoping they're going to accept to try to do a pilot project there to help folks, particularly get to medical appointments, grocery stores, and also for economic development into jobs. There's not a lot of opportunities for them, especially second and third shift jobs, to have public transportation. So we just wanted to ask if that could be part of the plan to
Okay.
the city to consider.
So microtransit, you're talking about like more buses, not buses, but the vans kind of.
Right. So in theory, a resident could make an appointment, typically through an app, that would schedule appointments for smaller buses from Senior Solutions to go get them and to move them either to work or, more importantly, to the fixed route systems that you already have.
Okay. It's a great plan.
Thank
So that
you.
was part of chapters, maybe in addition to Chapter 7, the transportation. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else with concerns, issues? Would anyone have anything for comments of support or anything else? And then anyone who's neutral just wants to either, like Mr. Wright said, add to the current plan any drafts. All right. Well, then we will move forward with discussion and voting on this. So, Josh, I do have a question for you on what was just talked about with that transportation. I thought that was a great little, with the microtransit, and then y'all also talked about being able to get grants and things like that.
Right.
Is that something that can be added to this document?
Yeah, and I'll let Josh speak to it. We were just sidebarring about it. We spoke with him and some other folks at the open house about this, and have spoken with Tool, our transportation sub, about this, who's aware of it. So I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I would just say, it makes a lot of sense. We heard about it a little too late to get into this document, but that's definitely something we could, like you said, get into Chapter 7, I think it is, for
Yeah.
sure.
All right. Well, hearing that, do we want to have a motion on the resolution for adopting the City of Anderson Comprehensive Plan with the amendments that were discussed tonight? Mr. Seegers moves for approval, and we have second from Mr. Sconiers. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, so this will go in front of City Council. They have 2 more readings on this as well. So, and if we have nothing else to discuss tonight, we will consider ourselves adjourned. Thank you.